Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Again, I am Kaylee Batesman, the Managing Director at She Can Code, and today we're discussing AI and recruitment, myths, CVs, hacks, and what really happens behind the scenes. I'm joined by three incredible people today. I'm very lucky to have three guests from the Enbram Group. I have Yasmin, Aaron, and Stacey, and they're here to unpack one of the most talked about topics in hiring right now, AI recruitment. There's a growing concern that AI filters are silently rejecting CVs before a human ever sees them, and this is particularly impacting unrepresented groups, including women in tech. So we're going to unpack this topic today with some practical advice, honest insights, and real talk from the people who have literally seen it all. So welcome, all three of you. Thank you so much for coming on, spilling the tea, and having a chat with us today. We'd love to start with some intros, if that is okay. Stacey, let's start with you.
Hello, it's good to be back. So I've worked for M Brown for just over 8 years now. So I started off supporting our marketing and brand functions. I actually started as a maternity cover, and then got made permanent. And then after about 18 months, 2 years, got the opportunity to look after our digital operations division. So everything tech focused, really. So I've been looking after the recruitment there for a number of years. Love obviously learning something completely different. I'd never recruited in tech before. So really, grateful for M Brown giving me the opportunity to learn. And I think having a really supportive kind of leadership team and colleagues within that area who are really happy to explain all the jargon and was really helpful in terms of learning kind of the ins and outs of tech. And then obviously, I guess over the last few years, really trying to work with partners like She Can Code in terms of how we can support and engage more women in technology has been a real passion for me. So that's just a bit about myself.
Amazing. Thank you. And Yasmin, tell us a little bit about
Hello.
you.
Yeah, of course. So, yeah, my name's Yasmin, and I'm a talent acquisition lead here at M Brown. So, my current responsibility is to look after a few different business areas. So, I look after our supply chain and logistics teams. And then I also have some head office functions. So, the legal services team, internal audit, and procurement. So, my role is very varied in terms of the type of recruitment that I look after. Yeah, I guess I've been at M Brown for about 8.5 years, and I've had the opportunity to recruit across pretty much the whole of the business apart from tech and DT. So hopefully, in terms of this chat today, I'll be able to sort of give a different bit of perspective in terms of the recruitment on my side of things and give a different sort of perspective of ideas and thoughts as well. But in terms of sort of my experience of M Brown and what's kept me here for so long is firstly, I work with a great team. So Stacey, Aaron, and Tessa, who's our manager, all really supportive and, really sort of, work together to sort of try and be really progressive in terms of recruitment. So AI is a really big thing that we're looking at as a team right now. And yeah, in terms of the culture, it's a very supportive environment, and I've had the chance to really develop at my time at M Brown. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself.
Amazing. Yes, most of the people I speak to from Brown have been there for some time already. I know they do a great job at retaining their staff, and there's always a good story to tell. Aaron, last but not least, tell us a little bit about
Yes,
you.
yes. So my name is Aaron, and I've been with M Brown for a little bit. I think a year and 6 months now. So not that long compared to Stacy. And yes, so still learning a lot. And my role, I'm the talent acquisition lead for retail, and my role basically covers buying, merchandising, and design, fit and sourcing, e-commerce, online merch, CRM and marketing, and decision intelligence. So quite high volume from my side. Um, yeah, so I really, really enjoy the role. my role and the culture. I think it goes back to what Yasmin shared as well. I think overall the culture's been very supportive. I've been mostly in retail slash tech recruitment throughout my career, and it's what I enjoy. So yeah, I'm glad to be here, and thank you for having me today.
No, thank you very much for coming on board. And chatting with us, and you at least know that you're going to be there for a very long time. When you join one of those companies where people just stay for the long run, or I've been in one of those companies where people join, they might leave, but they come back again. Do you have lots of people like that at Embra? I can see you all nodding. Yeah,
we do, definitely.
Yeah, I do.
Some companies manage to retain people, or they hop in and out, and know they're always welcome.
Yeah, it's always good as well when people come back a few years later. They've worked at a different business, have different experience, different skills, and then they come back into the business with a bit of fresh pair of eyes, isn't it? You know, because I know we all do quite a bit. You know, whether that's going to events or networking, because you know it's great, obviously being in one business, but it's good to also share experiences and gain a better understanding of what's happening outside of your business to then bring in and help, isn't it?
Yes, and it's always nice when people want to return as well, rather than those employees that think, gosh, I'm never going back to that company, or I made it out alive, or that kind of feeling.
Yeah, getting quite a couple of rejoiners who applied for the role. Just yesterday, actually, we got a rejoiner who rejoined Embrown as a CRM lead. So yeah, definitely, that's a great company.
There must be something is going right there. So we've got a lot to unpack today about AI recruitment. It is something that our community has asked us about recently, obviously with the changes that have happened really fast in the industry. So I wanted to kick off the discussion with a question to you all. Many candidates worry that their CV never reaches a human because AI rejects it. What actually happens when someone applies to a role at Embrown?
So I guess I can kick off with that. So just to put everybody's mind at ease, at Embrown, we do not use AI to kind of automatically screen candidate CVs when they apply for a role. It is always one of us three and or the hiring managers, so who will review each CV as they come in. We feel like it's really important. Obviously, there are absolutely, you know, some areas of our recruitment process that would hugely benefit from AI. But we felt as a collective that shortlisting and pre-screening is better done by us, a real person.
Yeah, I think you know, just to add from my perspective, you know, we get a lot of feedback and we sort of see a lot of comments on LinkedIn about candidate experience. You know, when they've submitted an application and they've been, it's very obvious when AI has screened their application and it doesn't create the best experience as a candidate. So I think as a team we decided that for our business that the really human first approach is best. Knowing that you're being looked after by a human and your interactions are going to be sort of led by a human first approach, really for us, we felt like that would create the best experience. So yeah, I think, you know, there are parts where, you know, we would use AI as part of our recruitment process. I think everyone's well aware about the benefits of AI. So I guess as an example, you know, when we're creating an advert, we may use that as a starting point. So use AI to assist. But the sort of the real body and the sort of the main sort of information in the advert is really reviewed either by ourselves or by the hiring manager. So I guess it's just to give it a bit of reassurance to, you know, you guys out there that it really is that human first approach. And yeah, you know, we're really sort of very sort of proactive in terms of getting that feedback from our candidates around that experience, and generally that human contact is what candidates, you know, are looking for, and we've had the best feedback from.
Yes, I completely agree with that, especially using AI to assist in your adverts, because also you can move a lot faster as well. And we were discussing this internally recently. We don't know how we used to do things without AI, because we do so much more now where that you can have that starting point and then you can review what is in there. But it's so important to still have that human looking over everything, but definitely using AI to assist. I couldn't agree more on that. And you are right with that candidate experience, I think is very much forgotten at the moment. There are so many young people on the news that you keep seeing at the minute saying, I've applied for hundreds and hundreds of jobs and I'm not hearing back. And then there's that experience as that company. If something does come up in the future, you might be 10, 15 years into your career at that point. You still remember that was a terrible experience I had with that company, or I had one, I won't name them, but the process was so long and drawn out. It was about 10 months later when they finally come back and said, oh, this is still ongoing. Are you still interested? No, I've already got another job at this point, and I'm not looking to move. And the whole process was just such a terrible experience that I wouldn't think about applying to that company again, because I understand companies get a lot of applicants, but treating the candidates with some respect, at least, to think, even if we don't have a role that's suited for you at the minute, we might have one in the future, is really important. So yeah, to have use reviewing everything must make such a difference to the candidate experience, definitely.
Yeah,
and the amount of feedback we actually get from candidates around just that communication that perhaps they don't get, like you've mentioned, it sticks, you remember, just that, thanks for your application, but unfortunately right now we don't have an open position. That small quick sentence, it doesn't take a lot of time, but you're communicating, you're giving them, like you say, the respect to give them that, human approach of, we understand finding a new role, especially at the moment, can be quite challenging, quite tough, but just dropping them a note to say, we hear you, we see you, but, this is where we're at right now. The feedback we've had, even from that sort of basic bit of communication that they don't get elsewhere, has been received really positively. So yeah.
I always treat it a bit like, do you know when you go on holiday and you go to a really nice restaurant, or you go to a really nice hotel, you're not as likely to write a really good review, are you? But if you have a really terrible experience, you probably will.
You're on there, yeah.
So it's like if you're I don't know, if you're out with a few of your friends and you're maybe talking about, I don't know, a few of you looking for a job, you're probably more likely to go, do you know what, I had a really terrible experience with this company, and that sticks. Whereas, so I think from you do remember those experiences that are good, and that, even if you don't get an interview, or you don't get a role, or you don't get offered, you can still have a really good experience throughout. And sometimes no doesn't mean no forever. It's no just at this time or for this role, isn't it? So yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It also
I
gives
agree.
you sorry, I was just gonna say, you're probably about to say what I was gonna say. It's the feeling of what it might be like to work there as well. Because if you have a bad experience like that one I applied for, it's so dragged out, my immediate thought was, oh, is this what it's like to work there? Imagine working there and, it takes 10 months to get one thing pushed through. That would be soul destroying. Whereas some companies move very fast, it's very personable. You have people at the end of the line all the time that you can talk to as a team and support each other. But I immediately thought, guys, their recruitment process is that dragged out. Maybe that's what this is like internally as well, very corporate. Just not for me. Aaron, is that something that you would agree with? You're kind of showing the candidate as well what your culture is like working there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I can still remember my experience from 10 years ago, probably getting ghosted in the middle of the process. And I think it doesn't just reflect the culture internally, but it also turns me off as a potential customer if that, say, it would be a consumer brand, for example, and it sticks with you. I think, and that particular And as well, like again, it turned me off as a customer, and I wouldn't recommend that company or brand to my friends or family. So I think having that, you know, putting in that effort and applying for that role and giving a response, I think is definitely super important, not just for the experience, but the overall impression of the company. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'm there with you.
definitely. And so, as we've discussed, you've chosen not to use AI to filter candidates, even though much of the tech industry is moving that way. What influenced that decision in the first place, and what are the benefits that you have seen from that already? Have you noticed almost a difference between what you're doing and perhaps what you've heard what other companies are doing?
I mean, I'd say so. I think, as an example, quite often. So one of the reasons it's better to use to do it the human way rather than the AI way is quite often you'll have someone who applies for a role. They might not be quite right for that specific role. Now, AI would auto reject them, right? But if we look at that and they go, actually, they've applied, they've got some really good experience, but I think they're actually better for a different role, then that for us is like pipeline. That's like talent for another role. So we could pick that CV and speak to that candidate and say, hey, you've applied. We actually think there's a better role suited to your experience. Are you interested? And why would you want to potentially miss out on those candidates being rejected, so that's just obviously one like example of where it helps us, and as I say, AI is really, really great for so many things, but I think definitely for like reviewing, shortlisting, interviewing, I just would feel more comfortable it being us, and the hiring manager. And as I say, there's a lot of, you see a lot online about like, sometimes it becomes a bit of a keyword game of bingo, doesn't it? Of like, what do I need to have in my CV to get me through this AI auto screen? And that's not really what applying for a job should be about, should it? At the heart of it,
No, because you would just think, oh, if I could just talk to someone, they would see as well, sometimes to see the passion in what you're doing. And there are certain things that you money cannot buy, or certain things that you cannot just go for a boot camp and put on your CV. So it's sometimes with that, there's a story I'll tell about a lady. She's in our community, and she volunteers with us sometimes. And she said, when I went for that job, I learned C++ in 2 weeks, and I didn't know it. And she said, I went for the coding test and I didn't do that great, but the employer still rung her up and said, we were so impressed that you learned that in 2 weeks. We didn't care if you didn't, ace the test. You can't buy that. She was just so passionate about it and was so going to be a sponge for that employer that they just hired her anyway. And she went on and did amazing things there. And if, like you said, Stacey, if that had gone through screening, they immediately would have just put her out of the running.
Rejected. Yeah. And don't forget, okay, yes, we are looking for people who've got the right tech skills or the right type of experience, but actually we also look, and a huge part of the interview process is assessing people's values and behaviours. So are they demonstrating the type of behaviours we want to see throughout our colleagues within our business? And that stuff sometimes, it doesn't come across on a CV. You have to speak to them, don't you? You have to so I think, and ultimately, finding the right person for the right role, it is a human thing, isn't it? It is like, you can't get that. You can't replicate that, can you?
No, not at all. Sometimes it is a quick phone call as well, just to chat with somebody and just think whether or not sometimes you would know really well as to who is suitable for N Brown, who would be suitable for the culture and get on well with the team and like all of those things that you can't put on a job advertisement that only you would know from chatting with people about, you know, the things that they like. And for instance, I'm a person who likes being at a small startup, and some people don't like that. It's the crazy world of working in a startup, and there's lots of responsibility and not many people, whereas other people prefer big corporates and everything's already done and they kind of can fit in and do their job, and they like that structure. So you kind of know the sweet spot of who you're looking for. But those things they don't really come across on a CV.
No. You don't, and I think, you know, we're very well aware now as well for, you know, it's a two-way street. So it's not just us screening or interviewing the candidate. You know, the candidate needs to get something out of the call as well. So they really need to, you know, get to know us as a business to see if we're the right fit for them as well. So if you're using solely AI to screen that application, you know, you're not giving the candidate the opportunity to find out a bit more about whether we're the right fit for them as well. So yeah, for us, it's really, when we do that initial call, it's a two-way street. We want you to have the opportunity to ask those questions of us as well about, you know, the role, the technical side of things, what it feels like to work in the business as well. And we're getting lots of feedback from the candidate and the market as well through doing that. So, you know, it does benefit both sides.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. We worked with a company who said they took over the lead for the partnership with us. And when I spoke to him, he was very new at that company, and he said to me, I only joined a few months ago, and when I did my interview, I was looking at the recruiter thinking, well, this is all nice, and this company seems really nice, and these people just seem great. He said, and then I got in thinking, right, there must be, excuse my French, arseholes somewhere. He said, I'm waiting for them to come out of cupboards, because the recruitment process was great, the team was nice. He said, and I'm waiting for them to come out. And he said, they haven't appeared yet. So he did get that impression from the recruitment process as to whether or not he wanted to join that company. And he said, I was proved wrong when I got in and realised actually the team, they do work very hard to recruit a certain type of person, as he put it, just passionate people that really love their jobs. And but he painted a picture of that before he even got into the role. So yeah, it does make a difference. We hear from women in tech who feel that they have to meet 100% of the job spec to apply. We hear this all the time. They even walk up to us at shows and tell us, well, I'm training for this, but I'm not applying, which drives us insane because we just think they should just be applying. But from a recruiter's perspective, what do you wish that they knew before hitting submit?
I think this isn't limited to tech, to be honest. It's across any industry. It's something that is really common. I think there's two sides to this. Job descriptions can often be quite long and be more of a manager's wish list, and you're not always going to have everything on it, and that's absolutely fine. Still apply. So I think I would wish for people, when they're looking at a job description, if they don't have one thing, unless you're reading that and go, do you know what, that's, take a bit of sense with it, like that's absolutely essential to do that role, then, obviously don't apply. But if it's like, well, actually, like, I could learn that, or, I could build on that, then yeah, like apply. I think on a job description, everybody, still need to get better at really trying to fine tune your job descriptions to make sure it's literally the only most essential skills and experience to do the job. So yeah, my advice would be, apply, but just treat it with a bit of, like, as I say, a bit of sensibility. Don't be applying for something that you've got zero experience in. But at the same time, take a bit of a chance on, just because you don't have one thing. And as we mentioned before, it's the values and the behavioural side of things as well. So you know, someone could have absolutely everything on the job description and tick everything, and then you interview them and go, actually, they're not the right fit. So it's not just always about those kind of key technical skills. It's about the overall and what that person can bring. So yeah, I would say, you know, still definitely apply.
Yes, definitely. Erin, I can see you nodding away, agreeing there. Is that something you've seen? Because I personally have seen everything that I think I want on paper sometimes. And like Stacey just said, I get on the interview and I think, in my mind, you were going to be my top candidate. And actually,
and it does happen.
It doesn't, and then it's somebody else that I think, they've come through suddenly as the dark horse. And that must be quite frustrating for you. So is that something that you see a lot, Erin, where you're like, I just wish you would have applied for that role or put yourself forward?
Been in a number of situations actually recently. So I've joined the interviews for a online merch executive role that we were hiring for, and we got quite a number of candidates who were just perfect on paper, but when they came in, you know, it wasn't the right fit because of values and cultural fit. And then in the end, we went for somebody who didn't really met all the requirements on paper, but they had the right transferable skills, mindset, thought process, and the cultural fit. And in the end, you know, we thought that person was the pretty much the outstanding candidate throughout the entire process. So I agree with all the points that you shared earlier. Like, you don't have to meet, you know, all the criteria you see on the job description. Sometimes it comes down to like the transferable skills, mindset, thought process, and the values and cultural fit.
Yeah, I think some companies as well. It's certain brands. If people don't really know that brand, they might think, I might not apply. There are some brands as well that I heard this one recently from a contact of ours, and the brand that she's gone over to, we knew her from a previous corporate ambassador, and we were really lucky that she moved to another corporate ambassador of ours, and she said, I nearly didn't apply for that job because the brand itself is quite intimidating. It's quite, everybody there you think is like highly intelligent. They only pick certain people from certain universities. And she said, when I went over, I was thinking, I know all the jargon. I know how to she works in talent, but she was thinking, how do I know how to recruit for these types of roles? And she said, the more I've spoken to people on this team, everybody else had the same thought as well. So even herself as a talent recruiter in that company, she nearly didn't apply for that role because she didn't think that she ticked all the boxes. And she said, the more I've asked around this company, everyone else nearly didn't apply for their role as well. So if they all took that chance and then got in and realised actually it is a good company, and what was I worried about in the first place? So sometimes it's just taking that leap of faith because other people are feeling the same way as well, usually, especially in tech. And Stacey, you mentioned at the start with the jargon, we just bamboozle ourselves with useless jargon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%.
It's an interesting point. I mean, because we whenever we advertise a role, we run them through a gender decoder tool, and you know there are some. So, for example, I know Stacey within the sort of tech side of things, and then for myself for supply chain and logistics, because by nature it is a very male heavy industry. We sort of review our adverts and the text in there to be more female weighted, so that in an ideal world, it will help to attract more females to apply for the role. Because, you know, I know I've been through that experience myself. When you see an advert with I guess more masculine words that are a bit stronger, a bit more direct, it does, you know, put you off slightly. And, you know, I think it's not just tech, I think it's across the board. Women generally, if they don't hit the mark on everything, and there's something in there that slightly sort of they think they can't meet that requirement, it generally does put you off from progressing through that process. So I think, that's where we do a bit of work around our adverts in terms of, looking at the types of words that we're using and how we're communicating to our audience and our target audience as well, to attract more female talent to the roles as well.
Yes, definitely. Because if we do hear that so often from our community, they're seeing the job, they're not applying. So yeah, putting in that effort of trying to word that advertisement at least to try and catch those people that are sort of on the fence about whether or not they should apply would definitely make a difference. We've spoke a lot about you using AI in the recruitment process. What about AI for CVs? Is the other way that AI has been used in recruitment at the moment. So there has been a huge rise in AI assisted CVs.
Yeah.
When does using AI generally help a candidate, and when does it actually hurt them?
Yeah, I think I do not have an issue with people using AI to support writing their CV. I think it's really great for articulating your skills, your experience, tidying it up, making it more concise. I think that's what it should be used for. Please do not input a job description into AI and ask it to write it for you, or write a cover letter, or write a personal profile. For me, that's just a big no. I remember a while ago I had 2 CVs for a role, and I both had the same opening paragraph. And yeah, like literally, and it was the same, like word by word. So I think I would really encourage people to keep that CV as much about you as you can, and show, I guess, what I can see as a difference as well, if something's been written with AI versus being written by someone, is showing what you've delivered and what you've achieved, not just a little list of everything you do on a day-to-day basis, because that's just a long list, isn't it? Whereas actually, yeah, obviously highlight what you do, but also like highlight what you've delivered. And that's because for a lot of roles, especially in tech, is, it's great. You might, I don't know, if you're looking for a role in, I don't know, like product management, it's probably, you're not going to have like a long list of like a tech stack, are you? But what actually you want to know as a good product manager is, what have you delivered and what's the impact been? What's been the value to the customer, or what's been the value to the business? And the same with like if you work in maybe an engineering role, is it's great that you've used AWS, but how have you used AWS? What have you used it for? So I think that for me is like the sweet spot. So absolutely do use it, tidy it up, keep it concise. It's really great as to how we use when we're building our job description, use it as a starting point, but absolutely make it your own, because it is very apparent, I think.
Yeah, because we're going to ask you about red flags and how you can just see that somebody has just run that through ChatGPT. But if you've got 2 with the same starting paragraph,
I was shocked. I'm sure I showed you in the office, didn't I?
Yeah.
And I was like, can you believe this? Yeah.
I think that the main like I say, it's disappointing because I think that's our first impression of you, and your level of interest in approaching our business, joining our business. So that's our first point of contact with you. And I think we want to see through that you've got that sort of level of commitment to applying for the role with our business. So that's what I would say is, use it as the starting point, but really, adapt it to yourself, your style and your skill set. And yeah, it is interesting. We have seen a rise in terms of candidates that we have seen using AI. And I think, we want to get to know you as a person. So really do use it as a starting point, but put your own flavour, your own stamp on it.
Yeah.
Yes. I suppose even as well, if you have a CV that is kind of your bog standard CV that you've always been using. Stacey, like you said, you might have listed your skills, even if you asked AI to assist you in changing that to show what you deliver, and to give you some pointers on how to tell your story in that way. Even that is a better starting point. So could you just help me tell my story a little bit better from what I already am on this CV?
Yeah.
Somebody gave a great tip on here, and it's something I've told a lot to our community members about brag books. So when you do something at work, find a place to write it down. And this lady referred to it as her brag book. And when she wanted to then apply for roles, she had a list of all of the projects that she'd worked on, that where she had achieved great things, where she could list, the value that she added. And because when you're applying and suddenly you think of, actually, what have I done in the last year, for instance? It all just escapes you, and you just start listing tech stack, for instance. So
totally.
even putting your brag book into ChatGPT would be a better start.
Brag book. I think that's a really great idea.
Never heard that one before.
Because you do forget what you do, don't you?
Yeah.
Right? You do forget. Yeah.
Exactly. And you have those little wins at work, and then you kind of forget, and then you get in a job interview, and you're like, well, did some stuff, actually you were key on a project, and you've forgotten about it. So Aaron, have you seen any red flags that you kind of see, and do you roll your eyes when you see certain things on CVs and you're like
No, I think I agree with Stacey and Yaz. I think using AI as a starter would definitely be feasible. I think a red flag would be what I've experienced recently, actually. Like, what was written in their CVs doesn't really match how it comes across in the interviews. So I think AI can help you phrase things well, but it can't really replace your experience, because that's you. So sometimes, when we looked at CVs with hiring managers, CVs reads really strong with the right words, with all the right sort of like directions, words that they put in the paper. But when they get into the interviews, there was an obvious gap there. And I've been supporting in interviews where candidates struggled to talk through the details behind what they've written, no matter if it's on the CV or, say, the task that they've prepared. And that disconnect becomes a red flag, I think, pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's super interesting, and a massive red flag. But I think as well, especially with women in tech, I've heard this from lots of senior ladies for a very long time, who have said you need to be authentic at work, and being authentic is actually something that employers are looking for, especially in women in tech, because they want you to bring your leadership style, what you bring to the workplace. That's what they're looking to employ, because they want to diversify their workforce. They don't want you to be like everybody else that you have seen before you, that might have been lots of male-dominated leadership, for instance. If you're emulating that style, they want you to be yourself and what you bring to the table. So it's interesting that you can, put a load of stuff on a CV, and actually just that doesn't reflect you at all in that interview, and that you can see that massive gap. That must be quite disappointing at the moment, to think, well, this doesn't match your CV.
No. Well,
There's an interesting one. I remember we were in a sort of people huddle, and we sort of share ideas, things that we found sort of during the course of the week. And someone had mentioned that they had a CV through, and the candidate had put down that they went to Oxford University. So at the interview, they'd asked, oh, which house were you part of when you were at university? And the candidate just froze because they kind of knew that they'd been found out, and they weren't able to answer sort of, I was part of this house at university, and these are sort of some of the lectures that I knew. So, you know, that's why you do need to be super careful about what information is on your CV, because a hiring manager at any point could sort of call things out and sort of quiz you. And if you're not sort of well armed with the right information, then that's when we would really know whether the information in there is genuine or not.
Oh, that one, that's pushing it. I don't think I would make up I went to Oxford.
Where you went.
I know. We've heard some interesting stories over the sort of the past year since AI's sort of got bigger and bigger. So yeah, I think that's a bit of advice that I would give to the people out there, is really make sure the information on your CV is true to who you are.
Yeah, I suppose, I mean, on that note as well, with AI, it can help you with lots of things, but if we don't suddenly have it, or I remember the headlines, ChatGPT went down and it was humans forced to use their brains for a day, we still have to know what we're doing. So like you said, Yasmin, at the start, it's good to have it as something to assist you, but you have to know you can't wing it entirely through your job and just constantly asking AI. So, yeah, that you must be catching quite a few people out in interviews at the minute, thinking, no, don't think you can do that.
Like, if you get found out once, you won't do it again. So maybe,
true. That one time I told an interviewer that I went to Oxford.
Oh yeah.
So if a listener is applying this week, what are 3 simple things that would immediately improve their chances of getting an interview?
So I think for me, kind of what we've highlighted already so far. So tailor your CV, especially obviously the tech skills. The amount of times like I get an application and it doesn't list or doesn't talk about the key tech stack that we're looking for. So I would definitely look at that. I think remove anything that's just not relevant. Like, don't necessarily need to know absolutely everything, like every job you've ever had. And then I think what's been helping, I've seen this quite a lot actually recently, is there obviously we look at like the job market, and especially for I guess I think you mentioned it before, Kaylee, didn't you, around, you know, the amount of people who are graduating and really struggling to get jobs. Obviously the labour market is really poor at the moment. So I think what I've found is some candidates have actually reached out to hiring managers directly and just said, you know, hey, I'm really interested. I have applied, but I'd love to, you know, have the opportunity. So I think showing that kind of proactiveness and enthusiasm goes a long way, to be honest. Yeah. I've seen that a lot, and it just might help kind of shine a light on you, and just going that extra bit.
Yeah, I think the market is so competitive right now. So
definitely
to separate yourself from the next, so obviously submitting your application through the relevant channels, but then dropping the hiring manager or the talent team a note just to say, I've submitted my CV. This is why I'm interested in the role. Would really love to have a further chat with you. And then for me, really, I think everything that Stacey said is sort of, for me, I would agree with. But I think before you're even in the position where you need to look for a new role, or you want to look for a new role, is putting yourself out there. So getting onto LinkedIn and creating your profile, presenting yourself in the right way on LinkedIn, connecting with sort of like-minded peers in the industry, and getting yourself out there to networking events as well, to meet with people in person, so they can get to know a bit more about you, and vice versa. You can sort of see what they're getting involved in their business as well, to see where you might want to approach when you are looking for a new role. So I think definitely anything you can do to be a bit more proactive is a key one as well.
Yeah,
I agree. I mean, just from personal share, real life experience, that's how I pretty much got my role here at M Brown. So I
Yeah, you emailed in,
submitted
didn't
my
you?
CV. I
Yeah.
emailed a message in. I think I've messaged Tess or Oliver as well on LinkedIn, and I think it was one of you, I think, Yas and Stace, that forwarded that that email to Oliver and
Yeah.
basically got the interview. So being proactive definitely goes a long way. And agree everything that Stacey and Yasmin just said. I mean, tailoring the CV is always a key point. Instead of, I would say, overuse of buzzwords can be quite an overkill sometimes. And I would highly recommend including something specific of an achievement. For example, like you've identified a gap in the X process and you've aligned with the team and changed the process, which resulted in a Y outcome. I think it builds a lot more credibility there.
Mm.
And always on the CV, I would say less is more. And you don't have to really put your entire life in it. But if you can really have the reader being able to read through your entire CV in say 6 to 10 seconds and understand your value, I think you're already ahead.
Yes, definitely. And I definitely agree on the emailing in and almost putting yourself in front of the people that need to see you. Something that we notice a lot is when people are applying for our roles, we notice their names when they're cropping up and even liking our posts on LinkedIn. And you start to make the connection with that name and that candidate, and that they're actively seeking you out and actually looking up your work and what you're doing. It really does make a difference. That tiny little like sort of logs that candidate's name, and that they're a bit more passionate about it than just I submitted another application and just over and over again.
Yeah.
I could keep talking to you on this topic all morning because there is so much to unpack, and our community will find this so useful. But we are already out of time. So thank you all so very much, Stacey, Yasmin, and Aaron. Thank you so much for taking the time out to share your valuable experiences. A pleasure. And to everybody listening, as always, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you again next time.